Hi, today we're going to be moving on to Unit 5, Ecology. First, as always, I want you to check in for daily attendance, and you should have already reviewed the PowerPoint that we're going to go over, and your assignment questions will be embedded in this Edpuzzle. Let's get started. Ecology. Before I get started on the PowerPoint, I want you to hit View, and you're always going to show speaker's notes. We're going to use a lot of this information for a lab later in the week. What is ecology? Well, ecology is the study of living and non-living entities in an environment. Entities being things, organisms, if they're living. Biotic factors in ecology are living. They are the living entities. Abiotic factors are the non-living entities. Let's look at a few examples of biotic or living factors. Examples would be plants, animals, even humans. Do you recognize anybody in this photo circa 1999? What do you think? And then this picture on the right, I took on the top of Whiteface Mountain up near Lake Placid in August. And you can see the trees, right? They are biotic factors. Let's examine abiotic factors. Entities or things in an environment that aren't living. On the left, I took this picture when I was in Seattle in October, a few months ago, and it is actually Elke Beach. If any of you have seen the movie Sleepless in Seattle, that's supposed to be the beach where the movie takes place at, or important scene takes place at. I've yet to see it. So abiotic factors would be the water, the sands, or what about even the sun could be an abiotic factor, or even dirt. Like, look at this picture. I took this picture when they were unloading dirt for my small garden I was making in the beginning of the summer. Now, it's important to know that there are many levels of organization in ecology, ecological levels of organization. And we start off with species, organisms that can breed, they can mate, they can cross, they can produce fertile offspring. Fertile meaning that those offspring can go on to reproduce. Then we move up to populations, a group of organisms that belong to the same species. Again, they can reproduce. Now, in a community, group of organisms, but have different species. And different species cannot cross, they cannot reproduce together. Moving to an ecosystem, all living organisms that inhabit an area, a place. They interact with each other and the physical environment. Now, going up further, we have a biome, a group of ecosystems that have similar organisms and climates. Examples of biomes would be aquatic biomes, right? Water, salt water or fresh water, grasslands, forests, deserts, and tundras. And lastly, biosphere, where all the organisms and physical environments on Earth are encompassed in one biosphere. If we look at this picture, we start with the individual species, go up to population, community, ecosystem, biomes, and then biosphere. Let's stop and check. Answer this question. Which sequence shows increasing complexity of levels of ecological organization? Biosphere, ecosystem, community. Community, ecosystem, biosphere. Biosphere, community, ecosystem. Or ecosystem, biosphere, and then community. The correct answer is community, ecosystem, then biosphere. Community, ecosystem, biosphere. Let's examine nutrition in an ecosystem. We know everything has to eat, so we will go on into detail, but we start off with producers, consumers, and then decomposers. We have a zebra eating grass, and then that zebra may fall victim to a lion, the predator, and the zebra is the prey. The lion's going to eat the zebra. When we examine what producers are, producers create energy that are used by other organisms. They're autotrophs, plants. They convert solar or chemical energy into glucose or food. Does this sound familiar? Exactly. It's photosynthesis. We start out with carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and we end up with glucose and oxygen. And autotrophs include plants, green algae, and some bacteria. Consumers. Now, consumers are a little different in that they need to take their energy from an outside source and bring it in. They consume other organisms. Some eat plants, and some eat other animals. They're heterotrophs. They get their energy from outside sources. They can't make their own energy. They utilize cellular respiration. Now let's take a look at different kinds of consumers. Herbivores. Consumers that only eat plants, leaves, and roots. So in these pictures that I did not take, we have an elephant eating the leaves of a tree, and the same thing with these deer. They are consumers, herbivores, eating leaves of a tree. Now carnivores. Carnivores, they only kill and eat other animals. They're meat eaters. And I should fix this, it's predator. Kills and eats. Prey. So a lion's a predator, and this wolf right here is a predator, and its prey that it's eating is the unlucky fish. Omnivores. We've covered herbivores. They eat plants. Carnivores, they eat just meat. So now we have a mix of the two. Organisms that eat both plants and animals. Right? We have a picture of a bear. Remember we saw the picture of the bear eating a salmon. But bears can also eat plants. They also eat wild berries too. And look who else is an omnivore. Omnivores eat plants and meat. Humans are omnivores. We eat both. Let's stop and check. Answer this question. Species of animals that obtain food by consuming only autotrophic organisms are usually classified as herbivores, decomposers, scavengers, or omnivores. The correct answer is herbivores. They only eat autotrophic organisms, usually plants. Another question. In a certain ecosystem, rattlesnakes are predators of prairie dogs. If the prairie dog population started to increase, how would the ecosystem most likely regain stability? And remember, just like our bodies, how our bodies need to remain stable and maintain homeostasis, ecosystems need to balance out and maintain a steady state. So choice 1, the rattlesnake population would start to decrease. Choice 2, the rattlesnake population would start to increase. Choice 3, the prairie dog population would increase rapidly. Or choice 4, D, the prairie dog population would begin to prey on the rattlesnakes. So we know that rattlesnakes eat the prairie dogs? And if there's more rattlesnakes, what do you think there's going to be more of? Yep, the correct answer is the rattlesnake population would start to increase. With more prairie dogs, that would allow more reproduction of the rattlesnakes to catch up with their food source, the prairie dogs. Now, we got through producers, consumers. Now we're going to decomposers. So even consumers will die. Producers and consumers will die, and organisms that break down these dead plants and animals are known as decomposers. They could be fungi like mushrooms or even bacteria. This brings us into food chains, a series of steps which shows the transfer of energy in an ecosystem by showing how a single set of organisms eat or are eaten. We start off with the sun. The producer grass, it's eaten by the grasshopper. The grasshopper is the primary consumer, but then the grasshopper is eaten by the frog. The frog is the secondary consumer, but then it goes up again, and the tertiary or the third consumer, the snake, eats the frog, but it doesn't stop there. The hawk is the final consumer, or some might call it the quaternary, the fourth consumer, eats the snake. But eventually, as we know, all living things will eventually die. All animals die. When the hawk dies, it will be decomposed by the decomposer, and its nutrients will be entered back into the environment. Let's stop and check and have you answer this question. Energy for this ecosystem originally comes from, so we have a rough picture drawn, but it's a pond with fish, some seaweed, some plants on top, and then there's the sun shining down. So energy from this ecosystem originally comes from water, consumers, sunlight, or plants. Yeah, the correct answer is sunlight. The sun originally provides the plants with the energy needed for photosynthesis, and then the producers will use that, and then it will go to the consumers. The fish might eat the plants. We're going to end here with this video I took of Chittenango Falls in September 2020, a few months ago. Like we've been doing in many of these lectures, in the comment section, the public comment section of this assignment, I want you to identify what some of the abiotic factors might be in this video. Factors in this waterfall that are not living. And then look around. You can also see some biotic factors, some living factors. And then dive deep further. Use your imagination. Think about other biotic factors. What might be living in the water? What other organisms might be around or buzzing or flying around? But please put that in the comment section of this assignment. And that's the lecture for today. I'll see you tomorrow.